What if the real reason you feel tired all the time is not because life is too hard, but because your mind never lets you rest, never lets you breathe, never lets you simply live in the moment you are standing in right now? And if you are listening to this while your thoughts are racing from past mistakes to future fears, wondering why peace feels so far away even when nothing dangerous is actually happening, then stay with this story, because somewhere inside it you might quietly find yourself. There was a young man who looked completely normal to the world around him, someone you could pass on the street without noticing anything unusual, someone with dreams, plans, and the same silent hopes most people carry deep in their hearts. Yet inside his mind there was always noise, constant noise, endless questions, replayed conversations, imagined failures, invisible worries about things that had not even happened yet. And every night when the world became quiet, his thoughts became louder, like an echo he could not escape. He believed thinking more would protect him, that analyzing every possibility would keep him safe from pain, embarrassment, or regret. But slowly he began to notice something uncomfortable and deeply honest. The more he thought, the less he lived. The more he planned, the more he delayed. And the more he tried to control the future, the more powerless he felt in the present. Days started blending together, not because nothing was happening, but because he was never fully inside any moment. His body was in one place while his mind was somewhere else, worrying about tomorrow, replaying yesterday, or imagining a future that felt both exciting and terrifying at the same time. Maybe you understand this feeling more than you want to admit. The feeling of being physically present but mentally exhausted. The feeling of simple decisions becoming heavy. The feeling of wanting peace but not knowing how to silence the storm inside your own head. One evening, after another long day of doing almost nothing, even though he felt busy the entire time, he sat alone in a quiet room and asked himself a question he had avoided for years. A question so simple yet so honest that it almost scared him to hear it in his own voice. He asked, "If all this thinking is supposed to help me, then why am I still unhappy? Why do I still feel stuck? Why does my life look the same month after month, even though my mind feels constantly active?" And in that silent moment he felt something shift, not outside him, but inside. Like a small crack appearing in a wall he had believed was permanent. The truth began to whisper very softly. Overthinking was not protecting him. It was hiding him from risk, from action, from growth, and most painfully, from his own potential. If this message is reaching you right now, take one slow breath. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet breath to remind yourself that this moment is real and you are still here. Because awareness is always the first step before change. And before we continue deeper into this story, if you believe in becoming stronger little by little, take 1 second to like this video and subscribe to Inc. because this place is for people who are tired of fighting silent battles alone and ready to move forward with honest courage, one small step at a time. The young man did not transform overnight. There was no sudden confidence, no magical clarity, no morning where fear completely disappeared. The noise in his mind was still there, still whispering doubts and worst-case scenarios. But something small had changed, and small changes are often the beginning of powerful endings. He made one simple decision, a decision so small that most people would ignore it. He decided that instead of waiting to feel ready, he would take one tiny action every day, even while feeling unsure. The first action was almost meaningless, just getting out of bed without checking his phone for an hour. Yet even that felt difficult, because overthinking always tries to pull you back into comfort, disguised as safety. But he did it anyway. Not perfectly, not confidently. Just honestly, and something surprising happened. His mind became slightly quieter, not silent, just quieter, like a machine slowing down after running too long. That tiny moment taught him a lesson nobody had ever explained clearly. Action reduces anxiety more than thinking ever will, because movement proves that fear is not in control. So the next day he repeated the same idea. One small action. Nothing impressive. Nothing worth posting online. Just something real. And then another day. And another. And slowly a quiet rhythm began forming in his life. A rhythm built not on motivation, but on decision. Weeks passed, and although his life still looked ordinary from the outside, something inside felt different. He was no longer completely trapped in his thoughts. There were small spaces of calm appearing between worries, small moments where he could actually feel the present instead of escaping into imagined futures. And those moments, even though brief, felt like freedom. One afternoon, he realized he had spent nearly an entire hour focused on a simple task without mentally running away. And that ordinary hour felt more peaceful than years of constant thinking. Because peace is not found in solving every problem. Peace is found in leaving your mind long enough to experience your life. This was the beginning of a quiet transformation. Not loud, not dramatic, but real. And real change is always quieter than we expect. He started understanding that clarity does not come before action. Clarity comes after action. And the people who move forward in life are not the ones who think the most, but the ones who act while still unsure. If you are still listening right now, somewhere deep inside you probably knows this is true. Because overthinking has never given you the life you imagine. It has only given you temporary comfort and long-term frustration. And the moment you see that clearly is the moment change quietly becomes possible. The strange thing about change is that it rarely feels powerful in the moment it begins. It feels small, almost invisible, like nothing important is happening at all. And that is exactly why most people quit too early, because they are waiting for a dramatic feeling instead of trusting quiet progress. And the young man faced this same silent battle every single day. There were mornings when his old habits tried to pull him back. Mornings when his mind whispered that none of this effort mattered, that small steps were useless, that real success required perfect confidence before action. And for a moment he almost believed those thoughts again, because familiar pain often feels safer than unfamiliar growth. But something inside him had started to wake up. Something calm and steady that did not shout, did not argue, just quietly reminded him that going back would feel worse than moving forward slowly. He began noticing how much time he had lost in the past just thinking about starting, planning to change, promising himself tomorrow. And realizing this truth hurt, but it also gave him power. Because if thinking had the power to steal years, then action, even tiny action, had the power to give life back. So instead of chasing motivation, he focused on consistency. Not big consistency that looks impressive online, but quiet consistency that nobody sees. The kind that slowly rebuilds self-trust. And self-trust is something overthinkers lose first. Because when you promise yourself action again and again but never follow through, a hidden voice inside you stops believing in you. And rebuilding that belief is one of the hardest and most important journeys a person can take. Days continued moving forward, and with each small action completed, something unexpected began to grow inside him. Not excitement, not sudden happiness, but stability. Emotional stability. The feeling that maybe life was not completely out of control. The feeling that maybe he could handle discomfort without escaping into endless thoughts. And that quiet stability became stronger than temporary motivation ever was. One evening, while walking alone under a calm sky, he noticed something he had not felt in years. Silence inside his mind. Not perfect silence, but enough to hear his own breathing. Enough to feel the present moment without rushing away from it. And that simple experience felt more valuable than any imaginary perfect future he had once obsessed over. Because for the first time he understood that peace is not something you achieve later. It is something you allow now when you stop fighting every uncertain possibility. But growth is never a straight line. And just when he started feeling stronger, life tested him in a way he did not expect. A failure arrived, real and painful, the kind that once would have sent him into weeks of overthinking and self-doubt. And for a moment, the old storm returned. Loud thoughts, harsh memories, fear of the future, everything rushing back at once. And he stood there feeling the familiar weight he thought he had escaped. This was the moment that truly mattered. Not the peaceful days, not the easy progress, but this uncomfortable crossroads where he had to decide who he was becoming. The person controlled by thoughts, or the person guided by action. And instead of trying to think his way out of pain like before, he did something different, something simple. It kept mobbing even while feeling broken, even without clear answers, even without confidence. He just refused to stop completely. That decision, quiet and invisible to the world, was the real turning point of his life. Because strength is not proven when things are easy. Strength is proven when stopping feels reasonable, but you continue anyway. Slowly, the storm inside him passed. Not because he solved everything, but because he learned he did not need to solve everything to keep living. And this realization changed the way he saw fear forever. Fear was no longer a wall, just a feeling. Temporary, survivable, human. If you are listening right now and thinking that your situation is different, that your worries are too big, your past too heavy, your future too uncertain, understand this gently and honestly. The mind always tries to convince you that your case is special, so you don't try at all. But progress has never belonged to special people. It has always belonged to people who continue one small step longer than their fear expected. The young man's life did not suddenly become perfect after this moment, but something far more important happened. He stopped waiting for perfection to feel peaceful. He stopped postponing life until certainty arrived, and instead, he began living in incomplete, messy, real days. And strangely, those imperfect days started feeling meaningful in a way perfect imaginary futures never did. He discovered that confidence is not built by thinking about success. It is built by surviving discomfort, again and again, until your mind finally understands that you are stronger than it predicted. And somewhere along this quiet journey, without a dramatic announcement, without applause, without anyone even noticing, he became someone new, not a different person on the outside, but a freer person on the inside. Someone who could feel fear without obeying it. Someone who could think without getting trapped in thinking. Someone who could finally move forward even when the path was unclear. And that invisible freedom was worth more than any success he once imagined. And the most beautiful part of his journey was not success, not achievement, not money, not recognition, but something far quieter and far more meaningful. He finally felt at peace inside his own mind. A place that had once felt like the loudest prison had slowly become a calm and livable home. And this change did not arrive in one dramatic moment. It arrived through hundreds of small decisions nobody ever saw. The decision to act while afraid. The decision to move while uncertain. The decision to continue even when progress felt invisible. And looking back, he realized something that most people spend their entire lives misunderstanding. The goal was never to eliminate overthinking completely. Because the human mind will always produce thoughts, worries, and questions. The real goal was to stop letting those thoughts control the direction of his life. He understood now that thoughts are like passing clouds. They can look heavy and permanent when you stare at them too long, but they only stay powerful when you believe you must solve every single one before moving forward. And the moment you allow them to exist without obeying them, they begin to lose their weight. This quiet freedom changed the way he experienced ordinary days. Simple mornings felt lighter. Small tasks felt meaningful. Even silence felt comforting instead of uncomfortable, because peace had stopped being something far away in the future and had become something gently present in everyday life. And maybe the most surprising truth of all was this. Nothing outside him had changed in a dramatic way. The world was still uncertain. Challenges still appeared. Difficult days still came without warning. But his relationship with those moments had transformed completely. And when your relationship with life changes, your entire experience of living changes with it. If you are still here listening, there is a reason for that. Something inside you is tired of the noise, tired of the waiting, tired of feeling stuck between dreams and fear. And this moment right now, this quiet moment of listening, could be the same kind of beginning he once experienced. Not loud, not obvious, but real. Because change rarely announces itself, it usually whispers, inviting you to take just one small step differently than before. Maybe your step is making a decision you have delayed for months. Maybe it is starting something before you feel ready. Maybe it is letting go of a past mistake your mind keeps replaying. Or maybe it is simply allowing yourself to rest without guilt for the first time in a long while. Whatever your step is, it does not need to be perfect. It only needs to be real. Remember this gently. The life you imagine is not built in one brave moment. It is built in quiet daily choices. The ones nobody applauds. The ones nobody posts online. The ones that slowly shape who you become when nobody is watching. The young man once believed peace would come after success, after certainty, after everything finally made sense. But in the end, he discovered the opposite was true. Peace came first, and from that peace, everything else slowly grew. And maybe this is the message you were meant to hear today. You do not need to solve your entire life tonight. You do not need perfect clarity to begin moving. You do not need confidence before the first step. You only need the willingness to move forward gently, honestly, and consistently, even while fear is still whispering in the background. Because overthinking has only one real power, the power to keep you standing still. And the moment you take action, even a tiny action, that power begins to fade. So when this video ends and silence returns around you, do not rush back into the same endless thinking. Choose one small, real action instead. Something simple, something imperfect, something that proves to your own heart that you are still moving. Because that single step, repeated over days and weeks, can quietly change the direction of an entire life. And if this story felt like it was speaking directly to you, take a moment to write in the comments the one thing you are ready to stop overthinking and finally start doing. Your words might become the reason someone else finds courage tonight. Share this message with a friend who looks strong on the outside, but is fighting silent thoughts inside. Because sometimes a single story arrives at exactly the right moment and becomes the turning point someone desperately needed. And if you want more stories that help you feel calm, focused, and quietly stronger in a noisy world, stay connected with English Utansta Story, because this place is not about perfect lives. It is about real growth, real healing, and real hope. One honest story at a time.